Stop, breathe. Before you tear yourself down again, before you look in the mirror with disgust, before you let that voice in your head call you, not enough. One more time, ask yourself this. Who taught you to hate yourself before the world even had a chance to? Because here's the truth. You became your own enemy before life ever truly challenged you. And that ends today. You are not broken. You are becoming. This is the truth they never told you. The world made you believe that your cracks define you, that your setbacks are the final story. But what if I told you the exact opposite? What if I told you that every piece of you that feels shattered is a part of something larger being formed? Something powerful, something unstoppable. You were never meant to be flawless. You were never designed to fit neatly into someone else's box of perfection. You are raw, evolving, unfinished. And that is your power. The struggle you're in right now is not evidence of your failure. It's the proof of your becoming. You're shedding layers, breaking patterns, reconfiguring your identity. This isn't destruction. It's transformation. You've spent so much time trying to be fixed, chasing perfection like it's a prize at the end of pain. But here's what no one told you. You don't need fixing. You need recognition. You need truth. You need someone to stand in front of you and say, there's nothing wrong with you. Your sadness doesn't make you defective. Your anxiety doesn't make you weak. Your anger, your confusion, your heartbreak, those are all evidency that you're alive, that you feel deeply, that you care enough to be affected. That is not something to run from. That's something to stand on. Because if you can feel it, you can face it. And if you can face it, you can rise. Every moment you thought you were falling apart, you were actually coming into alignment. Think about that. The friendships that ended, the opportunities you lost, the doors that closed, they weren't evidence that life was working against you. They were redirections. You were being pulled out of what was limiting you. And in that discomfort, you started building resilience. It didn't feel good, but it was, yes, necessary. You learned to stand taller. You learned to speak up. You started becoming someone who doesn't settle for less than what they deserve. And that shift didn't happen when life was easy. It happened when life cracked you open. Those moments didn't break you. They as introduced you to your power. There's a beauty in being unfinished, in not having all the answers, in still searching, still building, still growing. Because that space, the one between where you were and where you're going, that's where your character is forged. That's where your strength is born. You're not weak because you haven't figured it all out yet. You're courageous because you keep going on edge despite that. That's what most people won't tell you. The most powerful people in the world didn't arrive at their greatness fully formed. They broke apart. They rebuilt, they failed, and through all of that, they discovered something deeper than perfection, authenticity. And that is what you're finding too. When you stop trying to fix yourself and start trying to understand yourself, everything changes. You begin to realize that every reaction you've had, every fear, every doubt, it all has a root. You weren't born with self-hate. You were taught it. Somewhere along the line, someone made you feel like you weren't enough. And you carried that silently for years. But that belief, that's not yours. That doesn't belong to you. And now you're allowed to let it go. You're allowed to say, I'm not broken. I'm human. You're allowed to give yourself the same compassion you so easily give to others. Because healing doesn't come from punishment. It comes from understanding. You are in the middle of a story that isn't finished yet. And this part, the messy, uncertain, painful part, is the chapter where everything starts to shift. You won't always feel this lost. You won't always question your worth. But for now, in this exact moment, you need to hold on to one unshakable truth. You are not broken. You are becoming. Becoming someone who is no longer ashamed of where they've been. Someone who wears their battle scars like armor. Someone who looks in the mirror and sees strength where they used to see shame. This journey you're on, it's not about fixing who you are. It's about meeting who you've always been. The world hasn't even seen your full power yet. And when it does, it won't be ready. But you will. You've been living in a prison built from your own thoughts. Walls formed not by reality, but by beliefs you never questioned. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. I'll never be like them. You've said these things to yourself so many times, they've turned into a kind of twisted truth. But let me tell you something that can change everything. And your thoughts are not facts. They're not the gospel. They're not reality. They're stories. Narratives your mind creates based on fear, old wounds, and outdated patterns. And if you don't challenge them, they'll shape your life into a version you were never meant to live. Where did those thoughts come from? Were you born with them? No. They were planted by rejection, by comparison, by moments when someone else's opinion became your identity. Maybe it was a parent who made you feel small. A teacher who said you'd never amount to anything. A friend who abandoned you. Or maybe it was society itself, pushing you into a mold, convincing you that you had to look a certain way, achieve a certain status, follow a certain path to be worthy. And every time you didn't fit, every time you fell short, your mind filed it away as truth. I'm not enough. But that was never truth. That was pain pretending to be logic. That was trauma masquerading as self-awareness. The problem is, when you hear something long enough, even if it's a lie, your brain starts to believe it. That's how powerful thoughts are. They create your internal world. They shape how you see yourself, how you act, what you allow, what you pursue. If you constantly think you're not good enough, you'll sabotage opportunities that come your way. You'll push away people who genuinely care. You'll avoid taking risks. Not because you're incapable, but because your Zasak's thoughts told you a version of yourself that was never real. And that's the tragedy. How many dreams have died? Not because they were impossible, but because someone believed they weren't worthy of them. But here's the shift. You don't have to believe everything you think. You don't have to let that inner critic narrate your life. Just because your mind tells you you're a failure doesn't make it true. Your brain is wired for survival, not truth. It wants to protect you from pain, so it builds walls, avoids risk, and repeats patterns that feel familiar. Even if they're destructive, that's not truth. That's defense. And defense is not where growth lives. Growth lives in questioning, in asking, is this thought serving me, or is it limiting me? Is this belief mine, or did I inherit it? Who would I be without this story? You have the power to rewrite those stories. You have the ability to talk back to that voice in your head and say, no, I am not a failure. I am still learning. No, I'm not unlovable. I've just been hurt. No, I don't need to be like them. I need to be more like me. That's how transformation begins. Not with perfection, but with awareness. With recognizing that your thoughts aren't chains. They're choices. And you get to choose what you believe. every single day. The more you choose thoughts rooted in truth, in power, in self-respect, the more your reality begins to shift. Not because life changed, but because you did. You can't wait for the world to validate you before you start validating yourself. You can't wait for someone else to tell you you're worthy before you believe it. That belief has to start inside. That voice in your head, it can be your greatest enemy or your strongest ally. But it won't shift on its own. You have to train it, catch it in the act, interrupt the cycle, replace it with something better. This isn't just about thinking positively. It's about thinking as truthfully. It's about no longer allowing your fears, your past, or your insecurities to write your story for you. You are the author now. You always have been. And it's time to reclaim the pen. How many times have you silenced your voice just to be accepted? How many times have you shrunk yourself to fit into rooms that didn't even see you? You learned early on that being yourself came with consequences. Judgment, rejection, disapproval. So you adapted. You became a shape-shifter. You started editing yourself for others' comfort. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You agreed when you should have walked away. And with every compromise, every silent nod, every forced laugh, you drifted further and further away from who you really are. The irony, you were trying to be loved by people who didn't even know the real you. You traded authenticity for approval and ended up feeling more alone than ever. The tragedy is not that they didn't see you. The real tragedy is that you stopped seeing yourself. You looked to others to define your worth, waiting for someone to finally say, "You're good enough," as if their validation would unlock something in you. But it never did, because it never could. External validation is a moving target. It changes with moods, with opinions, with trends. One day you're praised, the next you're ignored. And if your self-worth depends on that kind of instability, you'll always be chasing something you'll never catch. You'll perform, you'll please, and you'll still feel hollow, because deep down, you'll know the truth. They don't love you. They love the version of you that you created for their comfort. Jess. And what's worse, that version of you, it cost something. It cost your joy. It cost your peace. It cost your truth. You stopped speaking up because you didn't want to be too much. You stopped dreaming big because you didn't want to outgrow your circle. You dulled your shine because your light made others uncomfortable. And somewhere along the line, you convinced yourself this was survival. You told yourself, this is just how life works. This is how you stay safe. But safety isn't silence. Safety isn't self-abandonment. Real safety is being surrounded by people who see you, all of you, and still choose to stay. Anything less than that isn't safety. It's slow suffocation. Here's the truth you've been avoiding. The real you is not too much. The real you is not too loud, too emotional, too ambitious, too opinionated. The real you is powerful. And if someone can't handle that power, that's not your burden to carry. You weren't put on this earth to make others comfortable. You were born to live fully, to speak boldly, to love deeply, and to take up space. You're allowed to be messy. You're allowed to be complicated. You're allowed to be evolving. And you're still worthy. Every version of you, before the healing, during the healing, and after the healing, is worthy of being loved and respected. You don't have to edit yourself to earn that. You can stop abandoning yourself now. You can stop betraying your own needs for temporary validation. You can stop giving the best parts of you to people who only want the watered down version. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to audition for love. If someone truly sees you, you won't have to fight for their attention. If someone truly values you, you won't have to dim your light to keep their presence. Real connection doesn't require self-erasure. It invites full presence. It demands truth. It calls you to stand tall, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. And being real is the most radical thing you can be in a world built on performance. The people who truly belong in your life will never ask you to shrink. They will never ask you to play small. They will never ask you to be less so they can feel like more. You deserve to be in rooms where your voice echoes, not disappears. You deserve relationships where your soul can breathe. But none of that can happen if you keep hiding. You have to choose you, not the masked version, not the polished version, not the agreeable version, not the real version dies. And when you do, you'll discover something extraordinary. You were never too much. You were always just enough for the life you were meant to live. Self-love isn't some luxury for the privileged or a weekend indulgence you treat yourself to when things are calm. Self-love is survival. It's the foundation for everything. How you treat yourself, how you allow others to treat you, how you walk through the world when no one's watching. You've been conditioned to believe that loving yourself is selfish, arrogant, or unnecessary. So instead, you punish yourself. You criticize every flaw, downplay every win, and give yourself the kind of hate you would never dare give another person. You expect perfection, yet extend no grace. And in the process, you've turned your own mind into a battlefield. That's not strength. That's silent suffering. People often say, I love myself when I'm better, when I lose weight, when I succeed, when I finally get it right. But self-love isn't a reward you give yourself at the finish line. It's the fuel you need to even begin the race. You cannot hate yourself into transformation. You cannot shame yourself into healing. Every time you try to use pain as motivation, you reinforce the lie that you're not worthy as you are. And that lie, repeated enough, becomes the lens through which you view your entire life. You start choosing partners who reflect that belief. You stay in jobs that drain you. You tolerate treatment that chips away at your spirit. Not because you want to, but because deep down, you don't believe you deserve better. Loving yourself doesn't mean you ignore your flaws or pretend your pain doesn't exist. It means you stop weaponizing them against yourself. It means you can look in the mirror and say, yes, I'm healing. Yes, I'm growing. And I'm still worthy right now. It's choosing to be on your own side, even when you're at your lowest. Think about that. When life knocks you down, and your mind joins in and beats you even further, what chance do you have to rise? But when you become your own anchor, when you speak to yourself with the same compassion you give your closest friends, something shifts. You become a safe place for yourself. And from that safety, strength is born. The world is not going to pause and hand you your worth on a silver platter. In fact, the world profits off your insecurity. It sells you things by convincing you that you're incomplete. It conditions you to look outside for validation, for likes, for compliments, for approval. But real self-love doesn't live in applause. It lives in silence, in the choices you make when no one's watching. Do you honor your boundaries, or do you let people cross them? Do you speak up for yourself, or do you let yourself be diminished? Do you say yes to things that nourish you, or do you say yes just to be liked? These aren't surface-level decisions. These are reflections of how deeply you've learned to love yourself. And let's be clear, self-love is not easy. It's not all candles and affirmations and feel good quotes. It's painful. It's gritty. It requires unlearning decades of self-abandonment. It demands that you sit with your wounds, confront your patterns, and rebuild your relationship with yourself from the inside out. It's saying, I matter, even when you don't feel like you do. It's saying, I won't tolerate this anymore, even when it's easier to stay silent. It's walking away from people who don't respect you, even if it means being alone. Self-love requires courage. It requires action. And most of all, it requires consistency. Not just when you feel good, but especially when you don't. When you begin to love yourself, truly love yourself, everything changes. You stop chasing people who make you feel small. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop living like your worth is up for debate. And the peace that follows. It's not just a feeling, it's a revolution. Because in a world that constantly teaches you to doubt yourself, to criticize yourself, to abandon yourself, loving yourself becomes the most radical act of all. It's not a trend. It's not optional. It's the lifeline you've been waiting for. The one that says, I am not my past. I am not my mistakes. I am not what others say about me. I am enough. And I choose me every single day. You keep running from your past like it's some monster that will devour you if you stop moving. Like if you pause for even a moment, all the regret, all the shame, all the pain will catch up and drown you. But here's what no one ever told you: your past is not a prison. It's a platform. Everything you've been through, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the failure, the loss, it wasn't there to destroy you. It was shaping you, refining you, giving you the tools, the fire, and the depth to carry something greater. And yet, you wear your past like a stain, like a permanent mark of your inadequacy. But you're not stained. You're seasoned. You're not broken. You're built. We live in a world that's obsessed with perfection and terrified of transparency. Everyone's trying to hide their mess, pretending their pasts don't exist. Acting like pain is something to be ashamed of. But let me be clear, your pain is not your weakness. It's your credential. It's the thing that gives your words weight, your presence power, your heart compassion. You don't gain wisdom from books alone. You gain it from being shattered and putting yourself back together. You gain it from falling hard and choosing to get back up again. Every chapter you're trying to skip, every memory that still stings, that's part of your strength. It's time to stop hiding it and start honoring it. Think about it. How many people would benefit if you told the truth? Not the filtered version, not the polished version, the real story. The one with the mistakes, the tears, the ugly cry, the moment you thought it was over. That story is your medicine. That story is the reason someone else will keep going. But as long as you keep treating your past like a curse, you rob the world of your greatest contribution. You want to inspire people. Show them what it looks like to rise. Show them what it means to fall and still choose to fight. Your past didn't ruin you. It revealed you. It pulled back the layers of who you thought you had to be and introduced you to who you actually are. Forgiveness plays a role here too, especially the kind you owe yourself. You keep replaying moments where you should have known better, should have left sooner, should have said no. But you didn't know what you know now. And punishing yourself for the decisions made from a place of survival, fear, or confusion won't change them. You don't need to carry that weight forever. You made the best decisions. You could with the awareness and tools you had at the time. That's not weakness. That's being human. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to outgrow your mistakes. Growth doesn't come from constant self-blame. It comes from grace. And it's time you started giving that grace to yourself. Owning your past doesn't mean being defined by it. It means reclaiming it. Taking the power back from every person, every moment, every decision that tried to convince you that you weren't worthy. You don't have to be ashamed of where you came from. You came through it. That alone is victory. That alone is power. You didn't just survive. You built resilience, insight, grit. You've seen rock bottom. You've stared hopelessness in the face. And yet you're still here, still standing, still searching for more. That hunger in you, that fire, that's proof that you've already defeated more than most people know. Your past isn't baggage. It's proof of your endurance. What's wild is that the very things you're hiding are often the things that will set you free. You're ashamed of the loss, the failure, the breakdown. But those are the stories that show your evolution. Those are the battles that built your backbone. Stop asking yourself, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what did this give me? Maybe it gave you empathy. Maybe it gave you clarity. Maybe it gave you a voice. And maybe, just maybe, it gave you the exact tools you need to walk into your future with boldness, purpose, and unshakable power. Your past wasn't the end. It was the beginning, the roots of something unbreakable, the foundation of someone unstoppable. You say you want a better life. You say you're ready for peace, success, joy, but deep down, you're still carrying a silent belief that you don't deserve any of it. And that's the root of it all, isn't it? You can't lead a life you love while hating the person who's living it. You've been trying to build something beautiful on a foundation of shame and self-rejection, and it's no wonder everything keeps collapsing. You keep striving, but it's never enough. You keep achieving, but you still feel empty. Because no matter what you do, you haven't made peace with yourself. You're chasing goals, but dragging the weight of self-hate behind you. And nothing, absolutely nothing, can thrive under those conditions. It's not the outside world that's holding you back. It's the war inside. You smile in photos, show up for others, check off tasks, and yet your inner dialogue is vicious. You pick yourself apart. You replay your mistakes like a broken record. You downplay your strengths, question your worth, and compare yourself to people who are just as insecure as you are. And then you wonder why joy never feels permanent, why love feels unsafe, why success feels undeserved. The truth is, you've been punishing yourself in silence. You've built a life that looks fine on the outside, but inside, it's built on self-doubt. And that disconnect, that misalignment, is what's making everything feel hollow. You can't fake self-worth. You can't pretend to believe in yourself while secretly tearing yourself down. Life mirrors your energy. If you show up with shame, you'll attract situations that reinforce it. If you lead with unworthiness, you'll settle for relationships, for jobs, for opportunities that don't honor your truth. And here's the hardest part. The world can only meet you as deeply as you've met yourself. So if you haven't learned to love you, the unfiltered, imperfect, evolving you, you'll keep getting lost in people, places, and patterns that reflect your inner chaos. That's why healing isn't just some self-help trend. It's a necessity. You can't lead a life of freedom while living in mental chains. Everything changes the moment you stop seeing self love as optional, and start seeing it as essential. You start checking in with yourself. You start noticing when your inner critic gets loud and you challenge it. You start choosing rest over burnout, boundaries over people pleasing, growth over guilt, and slowly your energy shifts. You stop apologizing for who you are. You stop begging for crumbs of affection. You stop hiding your light to make others comfortable. You move differently when you know your worth. You no longer chase. You attract. Not because you're arrogant, but because you finally understand you don't have to earn love. You just have to receive it. And that includes love from yourself. Think about what it would feel like to walk through life without constantly second-guessing yourself. To look in the mirror and not flinch. To say, I deserve this, and actually believe it. That kind of self-assurance doesn't come from perfection. It comes from R's radical self-acceptance. From standing in your flaws and saying, yes, this is me, and I'm still worthy. From owning your past, honoring your growth, and showing up as you are, not as who you think you have to be. That's when you start leading a life that feels good. Not just looks good. That's when your goals stop being an escape from who you are and start becoming an expression of who you've become. And here's the boldest truth of all: you are allowed to love your life without waiting to become someone else first. You don't have to earn your way into joy. You don't need to hit some arbitrary level of success to feel proud. You are allowed to feel enough right now. Because the moment you choose to love the person you are, not someday, not when you've lost the weight or made the money or healed the trauma, but right now as you are, with all your mess and magic, that's the moment everything begins to shift. That's the moment your life stops being something you run from and starts becoming something you rise in. One bold choice at a time, one honest breath at a time, one self-loving decision at a time. So now the question is not, will the world love me? The real question is, will I finally love myself enough to stop waiting? Because the life you're chasing, the peace you crave, the strength you've been looking for, it's not out there. It's within you. It always has been. You just forgot. So choose you. Not tomorrow. Not when it's easier. Now. Love yourself like your life depends on it. Because it does. And the moment you do, everything changes. Not because the world suddenly sees you differently, but because you finally do.